and welcome back. In this chapter, we're going to be talking about commitment. That is going to cover a lot of different kinds of motivations. So let's talk about what motivation is. The term motivation is defined as a need or desire that energizes behavior and directs it towards a goal. So a good example of motivation would be the motivation to eat, the motivation for sex, the motivation for success, the motivation for belongingness. These are good examples of behaviors that are energized and directed towards specific goals. So one perspective on motivation is that, let's talk about hunger, that you will be pushed towards eating by things like low blood sugar or your growling stomach or feeling a little lightheaded or something like that. That'll push you to seek out food. But what if you just ate lunch and you see, oh, dessert. I'm really full. I just ate lunch, but oh, that looks really good. Or, hey, it's somebody's birthday. And even though I just ate, here comes the birthday cake. Or all my friends are eating. These are examples of things that can pull us towards being motivated to eat, even though we're not full, even though we're not experiencing low blood sugar or a growling stomach or lightheadedness. So we have to remember that motivations can be pushes that drive us towards something, and they can also be pulls, things that are external to us that are pulling us towards certain behaviors. So drive reduction theory tells us that, when we're in an aroused or tense state, and that aroused or tense state is directly related to a physical need, it's going to result in a drive towards satisfying that need. And that the purpose of satisfying the need is to reduce the tension or the arousal. So we're motivated to reduce drives. The purpose of reducing drives is that we can enter a state of homeostasis. Homeostasis is a steady internal state. So when we feel a drive to eat, it's because we're trying to maintain homeostasis, where we have the proper blood sugar levels and fullness feeling in our stomach and all the things that would make us feel homeostasis, a steady internal state. So some need drives us towards some kind of drive reducing behavior. So the need for food is going to result in the drive that we call hunger, that then will lead to the drive reducing behavior of eating. The need for water will drive us with thirst towards the drive reducing behavior of drinking water. So that's all great when we're talking about biological things, but in psychological factors, we also seem to have drives. We also seem to have motivations. We have a drive to have the optimum level of arousal. Look at these monkeys who are clearly living in some kind of cage of some sort, probably in an experimental situation. And look how fascinated they are by this lock that one of them has in their hand. Even monkeys need to have the proper level of arousal. Curiosity increases arousal. Novelty seeking increases arousal. Humans, and probably monkeys to a certain extent, are infovores, seekers of knowledge. They consume knowledge, like an omnivore or an herbivore or a carnivore. We consume info, right? Infovores. And so we will seek out information to satisfy our curiosity or to help us to find a novel piece of information. How often do you find yourself watching something on TV and then Googling the things that are happening on TV to find out whether what they said is true, or whether what they said is related to something else that you just thought of? Or, hey, what is this actor or actress's name? Google it, right? We no longer have to sit in our aroused state of curiosity and try to hold it until the end of the movie so we can go look it up or something like that. Now we can whip out our phones and check things out. And that drive is really motivating. It causes us to do it all the time because we have curiosity. We want to find novelty. These are things that we're driven towards. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of motives that you're probably familiar with already argues that, at the very bottom of the hierarchy of needs, we have the physiological needs. Then a little bit higher up, safety needs. The love and belongingness needs come on top of that, and then the esteem needs and the self-actualization needs. I know I've already covered these. What I wanted to illustrate in this chapter is that according to Maslow, the first three motives, love and belonging, safety, and physiological, are all what he called deficiency needs. So when you don't have enough, then you're motivated towards seeking it out. So if you don't have enough food, you're going to seek out more food. If you feel like your circumstances are not safe, you may seek out a safer circumstance. If you feel like you're lacking love, or you feel like you are being excluded from your group, you're going to be motivated to try and fill that gap. So these are what he called deficiency needs. When they're low, then they are motivating. He called the esteem needs and self-actualization needs growth needs. And what he meant by that is that these are not very intrinsically motivating. They are not deficiency needs. When they're low, it doesn't drive you towards trying to fulfill them, according to him. Instead, these are needs that help us to become better. And so these are growth needs that, in the face of too many deficiency needs pressing on us, we may not have the bandwidth to try and pursue the esteem needs and the self-actualizing tendencies. Those things are like, you could sort of avoid them or not worry about them. Whereas you really can't not worry about the deficiency needs. Those are things that pull you, whereas growth needs are things that you might feel pushed towards. Now, achievement motivation is another category of motivation. You'll notice it wasn't really specifically on Maslow's hierarchy, but you can imagine that achievement might be part of the esteem needs. It might be part of the self-actualizing needs. It might even be part of love and belonging, honestly. Achievement might help to ensure that we feel like we're part of the team or that we're part of the organization. It might give us entree into an organization or a team. If we can achieve enough in another context, that might get us recognized as someone who's entitled to join this other group. So there might be a little bit of belongingness involved in the achievement motivation, but the basic premise of achievement motivation is a desire for significant accomplishment. So trying to do better than other people, trying to do better than we have in the past, trying to beat a record. Something like that would be achievement motivation. Now, people who are high in the need for achievement tend to prefer tasks that require skill and effort and that carry with them a risk of failure. So people who are higher in the need for achievement like tasks that have a risk of failure and that really you need to have some kind of skill or be willing to exert a lot of effort or something like that to be successful. Think about why they might be interested in tasks that have a high risk of failure. Why would they be interested in tasks that require skill and effort? Why would a person who's high in the need for achievement, you would think maybe a person who's high in the need for achievement might just want to achieve all the time. And small wins, big wins, wins that are easy, those should all be fine as long as I'm the one winning, right? That's the goal, but that's not how people who are high in the need for achievement see it. Tasks that have a higher risk of failure are more likely to be approached by people with a high need for achievement. And when they engage in a task that has a higher risk of failure, they tend to display persistence. It's almost as if they think they have the proper skills for achieving that goal, or that they have the ability to exert the effort that it would take to be successful in that goal. It's like they believe in themselves. I can do this. So people who are high in the need for achievement seem to really only value those kinds of achievements that come at some cost and that have the risk of failure. It's not very self-satisfying to achieve things that are super easy, right? Like Google a math sheet for first graders and go through and complete all of those math calculations that are on the math sheet for first graders and tell me how proud you feel of yourself at the end of that. I have a feeling not that proud. More than likely, the pluses and the minuses are not going to really stumble you, and you're not going to be feeling to yourself like you just really did something worth noting. Instead, you're going to think, of course I did it. It was easy. For a person who's high in the need for achievement, they like the risk of failure. They like the fact that some people can do this task and some people can't. And if I turn out to be one of those people who can, that means something. If I turn out to be one of the people who can't, hopefully I won't internalize that as that means something about me. It might mean something about my effort. Maybe not about my internal qualities, but instead about something temporary, like how much effort I put in. So that's why a person who is high in the need for achievement, when they're engaging in an activity that has a possibility of failure, they tend to display persistence. They tend to put in the effort, hoping to achieve the goal. All right, let's talk a little bit about the specific motivation to work. So here's my little mathy looking thing for you. We've got skill level on the x-axis, and it ranges from low skill to high. And then we have challenge level ranging from low to high. Okay. So here we have on the end where it would be low skill level, low challenge level. You'll notice that in that very corner, it says apathy. A person who doesn't have anything to do, or a person who only has things that aren't very challenging and don't take much skill, they may experience apathy, a little boredom. Maybe they're worried about their future, and they might be a little bit underwhelmed at work. They might be thinking, I don't know if this is the best use of my time. You know, this is something that's clearly beneath me, they might think. So this little sign says, it's not that I'm lazy, it's that I just don't care, right? And that can oftentimes happen when you have a person whose skills aren't being used and they don't feel like they're being challenged at work. Now, if you look up here where it's low skill level, high challenge, this might be that you have a person who has a lot of work that they're trying to get done. So it doesn't take a lot of skill to do it, but it's hard to get this all done. And so a person with a lot of work to accomplish might feel anxious or overwhelmed. They might be worried. They might be experiencing some levels of arousal where they are feeling, increased heart rate or increased blood pressure, something like that. Up here in the top right-hand corner, you have a person who is engaging in an activity that is high skill level and high challenge level. So it takes a lot of skill to accomplish it, and a lot of people fail when trying to do this task. When a person's engaged in an activity like that and they're doing it well, they're showing their skill and they're rising to the challenge, they may enter a state of mind called flow. Flow is a term that was coined by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. I have a bad American accent while attempting to pronounce his name, so I apologize. But he coined that term to describe that sort of self-transcendent state that you might enter when you're engaged in an activity that is the perfect combination of skill and challenge so that you can sort of lose yourself in the activity. Down here on the right would be a high skill level, low challenge level. So you might have a lot of skill and be able to do the task without really having to think about it or really have to struggle. And so I put a little sort of meditative picture here to illustrate that you might find that that's actually relaxing. If you talk to people who knit or crochet, a lot of times it looks complicated to other people. It looks very challenging to people who don't know how to do it. But to a person who knows how to do it, they might say, no, it's super relaxing. Yes, it takes some skill, but once you've accomplished that practice and work that it takes to get that skill level, you can actually just sort of do it without thinking very hard, and just really, it can be very relaxing, the sort of repetitive nature of the behaviors. And so relaxation comes from that kind of state of mind. So I thought it would be fun for you to actually get to see Csikszentmihalyi's TED Talk, where he talks about flow. And then we'll come back after the video and we will talk some more about the motivation to work.